So to use the area method, we will do our multiplication using blocks arranged in a rectangular way. Imagine we have the number 6, which we will represent with blocks. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If we multiply 5 to 6, meaning we replicate this rectangle that is 6 blocks long for 5 times, we will get a bigger rectangle that has one side that has a length of 6 blocks and another side that has a height of 5 blocks. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we're just going to go ahead and create a bigger rectangle using these as our measurement. So if we're going to represent this rectangle using multiplication, we can say that the rectangle that has 6 blocks or 6 squares in it, this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, was multiplied 5 times. So this is the one time, this is the second time, this is the third time, this is the fourth time, and then this is the fifth time. And if we count all the blocks in this new rectangle that we've formed, that is 6 blocks long and 5 blocks high, we're going to see that the number of blocks inside this rectangle is equal to 30, or there are 30 blocks inside of this rectangle, which also tells us that 6 blocks multiplied 5 times is equal to 30. So each of these blocks, if we pull it out from this big rectangle, each of these blocks are 1 block long and 1 block high. Now these figures are what we call squares. So a square is a figure which has the same dimension for its height and for its length. And the size or the number of blocks that have this dimension, which are 1 block high and 1 block long, or the number of squares that are inside our rectangle or our figure, is called the area. So in our figure, there are 30 blocks, and that is the area. So this one is also called the area. That is the number of blocks or squares that our figure has in it. So if we, for example, multiply 4 and 6, we can find the answer by drawing a rectangle of length 4 and height 6, which is 4 blocks long or 4 squares long and 6 squares high. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's just write their measurements outside of the rectangle. This is 4 and this is 6. We then will be able to determine that 4 times 6 is equal to 24 because it resulted in a rectangle that has 24 blocks in it. So if we count the number of blocks inside this rectangle, which has the length of 4 blocks or 4 squares and the height of 6 squares, if we count all the squares that are inside this rectangle, it's going to give us 24 squares. So the answer to 4 times 6 is 24. So again, the area is the size of the space that is inside a shape that we are interested in. This area is measured in terms of squares that have a side of 1 block in length and in height. And the area is simply the result of the multiplication or the product of our multiplicand and our multiplier. So in this case, this is the area or the number of squares inside our rectangle. Let's now try multiplying larger numbers, say 12 and 14. So what we'll do is we're going to create a rectangle that is 12 blocks long and 14 blocks high. Okay, so let me just draw our rectangles here. You can just imagine how long it's going to take us if we need to multiply larger numbers, right? Okay, so this is a rectangle with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 squares in length. And for its height, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 squares for its height. Now, if we count all the blocks or all the squares that are inside this figure that is 12 squares long and 14 squares high, all in all, it has 168 squares in it. So 168 is the area of this square, meaning that is the number of squares inside this figure, this rectangle. And that is also the answer to the question 12 times 14, which is 168. So again, you can probably imagine how much work it's going to take us or it's going to require us if we were to multiply larger numbers like 342 and 282. Now, that would take us a long time because we would have to draw a rectangle that is 342 squares long and 282 squares high, and counting all the squares inside of that rectangle is going to take us forever, right? To simplify our task, when multiplying larger numbers, we can do multiplication using another method called the grid method. So we don't need to count so many squares.